Welcome to Successful Philanthropy. I'm your host, Jean Shafiroff. This show is designed to highlight the work of leaders here in the United States and then beyond. Today with us, a most fascinating man, John Catsimatidis. And John is a billionaire financier. He is a philanthropist, and now he owns an international radio show. Let's all welcome John Catsimatidis. And John, it is a great pleasure to have you on Successful Philanthropy. And I'd like to start first with your beginnings. Your story is really an interesting one, and it's also a story of hope because you are a self-made man. And how did you start with your grocery store business?
Well, first of all, my two grandfathers came over, not on the Mayflower. They came over in 1913. And unfortunately, my father's father, that was named John Catsimatidis, passed away during the 1918 flu that was going on in the United States. My other grandfather, my mother's father, came over at the same time, but I got to meet him back in the when I got here. My father worked for the Italian government. He took care of the lighthouse in the Aegean Sea next to the islands of the Dodecanese Islands, which were the 12 islands along the Turkish coast. And he was taking care of the lighthouse. And after World War II, the British punished the Italians for being on the wrong side of World War II. And they took those 12 islands away from Italy and gave them back to Greece. So my father lost his job at the lighthouse. So he went over to his island, met my mom, married her, and had me. And 6 months later, in February of 1949, he coming to America. And he came to New York, and that's how we got here.
Yes, and I understand you had your first grocery store while you were in college at the age of 19. Tell me about that.
Well, we lived on 135th Street in the poor side of town, and I just finished Brooklyn Tech High School, and I was all ready to go to NYU at that time, the Uptown campus, and I was set. I jumped on top of the couch and was going to watch television for the whole for June, July, and August until I went to NYU. Well, my mom went to this grocery store on 137th Street that just opened up and talked to the owner, a guy named Tony, got me a job. She threw me off the couch and said, "You got to go work and you got a job." So I met Tony, and I'm a man of extremes. I either sit on the couch for 3 months or go to work 18 hours a day. So I went to work 18 hours a day. And we turned that store into a success. And a few years later, Tony had another store he was partners with his uncle, and they weren't getting along. You know, when partners don't get along, they don't get along. And while I was a junior at NYU, he talked me into it because he was like a big brother to me. I had no brothers and sisters. He said to me, "You got to take over that store. I don't want to have a big family argument because I don't get along with my uncle." So I ended up taking over the store, and he gave me 10 notes, $1,000 a piece for $10,000. He says, "You'll pay me $1,000 a month for the next 10 months. I didn't even know if I could make $1,000 a month. But I went to school full time. I worked every night till 1 o'clock in the morning, went to school the next morning. Guess what? Me and his uncle never had an argument, and we made the place a success. So that was my first successful store. But there was a tragedy. There was a tragedy. The tragedy is I didn't graduate. I was 8 credits short because I was working 100 hours a week. And that's how I got into the supermarket business.
Yes, and I've read that you were making $1 million a year at about the age of 26. Is that true?
No, I think I made it at 23 or 24.
Amazing.
And that was when $1 million was a real $1 million.
And what year was that about?
Oh my God, I think that was about 1973, 74. And we started doing well. And my father was upset. His expression, and my mother, we sent you to the university. You know, my father was a busboy, and he worked very hard to send me to NYU. And tuition was a lot of money those days. I had a merit scholarship for $600 a semester, and my father had to put up another $600. So that was $1,200 a semester. And my father would say, we sent you to the university to become a hamali. A hamali was a Greek Turkish word that meant the guy that was carrying crates on his back.
Now, you also went into the gas refining business, and I understand that's your biggest source of income. What year was that, and how old were you when you decided to go into that business?
Well, by that time, that was about 1983. We were in the aviation business then. We owned an airline. We started a company that ended up becoming NetJets. We were in the supermarket business. We bought. We had about, I forget, 30, 40 stores by then. And then, since we were in the airline business, and we sold the airline, and the people we sold it to ended up filing bankruptcy. So we go to the bankruptcy court, and guess what's in the bankruptcy court? An oil company. They talked me into looking at the oil company. And you know, if it's a good deal, Gene, I can't say no to good deals. I just write a check. And we wrote a check. We bought the oil company. And we wrote a check for $7.5 million to buy the oil company that was in bankruptcy. Then we ended up paying the banks 100 cents on a dollar. But when I put up the $7.5 million to buy the oil company, I knew I did a good deal when we made $7.5 million the first month.
This is an amazing story. Now, so today you are a very, very successful man, a very successful family with multiple businesses. And the story that I love is that you're all self-made and you started at a very young age by working in a grocery store right here in New York State. Now, John, you ran for mayor in the year 2013, many years after your business was established. And what was that like? And why did you want to become mayor of New York?
Well, I've accomplished everything else. I was doing very well in business. I was very involved with a lot of charities. I was very involved in the religious world, both Jewish and Greek Orthodox and Catholic. So I was involved in anything. So I wanted to help make a difference in New York City and help make a better New York City. I even had a plan to create the World's Fair or the World's Expo of I was running in 2013 to 2015. And I would have had it done. I would have gotten it done. I wanted to make a difference. So even though I was a Bill Clinton Democrat at that time for many years, and I could not get a Democratic nomination, so I ran as a Republican. And I ran against a guy named Joe Lhota, who was a very nice guy, and he used to be Rudy Giuliani's deputy mayor. And Rudy Giuliani was supporting him. So I look upon it that trying to get the Republican primary, I didn't really lose to Joe Lhota, who was a nice guy, but I lost to Rudy Giuliani because the Republicans depended on Rudy Giuliani making the right decision.
When I worked on Wall Street, I worked across the hall from Joe Lhota. That was in public finance. Anyway, moving on. And then you were
very nice man.
Very nice man. Yes. It's a very, very nice man. Now, moving on again in 2019, I think it was 2019 or maybe later, you announced again that you might run for mayor. And I think you withdrew early on. Is that correct?
Well, I can't remember. It's in 2017, there was an election. There was another one in 2020. Um, and there was so much turmoil going on in voting, so much. The American people had lost a lot of faith in getting an honest count, and there was. If people expected me to run as a Republican, New York City is 8-1, uh, Democrats to Republicans. So I thought it was. I don't mind fighting battles. I don't mind going into battle, but you want to have a chance of winning, and I didn't feel I had a good chance of winning.
I fully understand. Now, you have been seen with politicians on both sides of the aisle. I understand you've been a big donor to the Clintons, and then you've also been very involved with the Republican Party. How do you feel about your politics, and where do you stand today? And or doesn't it really matter? Are you looking at the issues and then the candidates?
I am a businessman. I'm a businessman, and like George Bush, he fell in love with Clinton. I fell in love with Clinton, and I worked very hard for him, and we had a great relationship, and still have a good relationship. And the fact is, I thought Bill Clinton was a common sense Democrat. And I usually use that on my radio show, Common Sense Democrats and Common Sense Republicans. I believe the extreme left or the extreme right is not good. And right now, my biggest problem with the Democrats, and I was a Bill Clinton Democrat, is that the moderate Democrats, the common sense Democrats, are scared stiff of the extreme Democrats. And I say to them, you should stand up and be counted. You should stand up and say enough is enough. And when I met with Governor Hochul, and when I met with Mayor Adams, and I think Mayor Adams agrees with me, and I agree with him, is that we got 8.5 million New Yorkers. I've had Commissioner Sewell on my show, and there's 3,000 violent criminals in New York City, repeat violent criminals that have committed crimes once, twice, 3, 4, 5 times. It used to be in the law that says 3 strikes and you're out. Well, I said to them, for whom do the bells toll? Is it for 8.5 million New Yorkers that want to enjoy New York, love New York like I do, that want to walk around, go out to dinner, and walk around on the streets of New York and not being afraid of getting clobbered over the head or shot? Or is it for the 3,000 extreme violent criminals? Why are Democrats in Albany, including the state Senate and the state Assembly, that have a supermajority and are able to put their thumbs down the governor's throat? Why are they doing that? Why are they supporting the 3,000 violent criminals versus the 8.5 million taxpayers that want to enjoy New York and enjoy life? And nobody can understand it.
Well, I'm with you on that. We need a safe New York City, and we need a safe country. When people feel that their security is at stake and they can't ride the subway without being in fear, and they can't walk down the street without being afraid that someone's going to hit them over the head, well, we have a problem, and we don't want that to continue. So now, John, you're known as a philanthropist as well. You've been very involved with the Police Athletic League, otherwise known as PAL, and many other charities. And I believe that you also understand the importance of philanthropy, just the way you understand the importance of good leaders in government, and also the importance of strong and honest businesses. Tell me a little bit about your philanthropy.
Well, the same way I said that I did, I worked hard for my Jewish friends. I worked hard for my Catholic friends and Catholic religion. I worked hard for Greek Orthodox, which I'm one of them. And I am the assistant to the Archbishop right now of North America. We have 13 dioceses and 50 churches, and I'm the highest layperson in the Greek Orthodox Church. And I believe in also bringing together all religions to all work together. And that's another problem with my Democratic friends, because the extremists in the Democratic Party are anti-religion. They hate everything, and I don't understand that. I've heard reviews by people that talk about Hitler, and they talk about Stalin, and they said the first thing that they got rid of is religion. So I'm wondering if we have something to worry about, that our country is under attack. People that the extreme parts of the Democratic Party want to get rid of our way of life.
Yes, and now about your philanthropy. Talk just a minute about your philanthropy, because I think it's so interesting.
Well, I contribute to all the religious friends of mine, Jewish and Catholic, and I'm very close to Cardinal Dolan. I'm very close to Rabbi Schneier. I'm very close to Rabbi Potashnik, very close to Rabbi Butman, and some chief rabbis in Israel. I help with the Greek Orthodox Church, Father Alex in Southampton, and he is a Medal of Freedom recipient. And I do a lot of hospitals, a lot of diseases, but we like to work very hard to make sure that they're accomplishing something for a cure for diabetes, or a cure for Parkinson's or Alzheimer's. That I like to have the feeling of accomplishment versus just going to another black tie gala.
I understand, and I know you've been very supportive of Stony Brook Southampton Hospital and many, many groups. And I know you love animals, and you've been
I love animals. I love cats. I love dogs.
Yes, and you've been very supportive of the Southampton Animal Shelter, and I'm sure many other animal groups. Now, John, you started your own, or actually you purchased WABC radio station a few years ago, and now you host a show. And what has that been like? I imagine you're really enjoying that. And why did you buy the radio station? And tell us a little bit about your doings with it.
Well, it's one of the most powerful radio stations on the East Coast. Right now, we're part of the old Department of Defense, 50,000 watts clear channel, which means that after sundown, the other channels have to power down. And after sundown, we're actually available in almost 36 states, Canada, and Northern Europe. So I believe in getting the truth out. So at 5, no matter, I run 7 or 8 companies during the day. At 5 o'clock, I go downstairs to the studio and sit in the studio and try to get the truth out. And we have become the #1 show at 5 o'clock. Because one, we try to have a good time. I have common sense Democrats and common sense Republicans sitting right in the studio with me. Governor Patterson, Judge Weinberg on the Democratic side, Ed Cox on the Republican side, Craig Eaton, and Tony Carbonetti. And we try to hash it out in the studio. We try to hash it out around the round table versus, being nasty to each other.
I like that. John, finally, we have about 2 minutes left or less. What advice do you give to, say, a young person who wants to follow in your footsteps? How do they become a John Catsimatidis?
Well, you keep all your options open. First of all, if you want to work 9 to 5 and go home at 5 o'clock, you're not going to become John Catsimatidis. You have to be able to say, I'm going to dedicate myself to becoming successful. And when you meet people, I had a lot of mentors growing up. When you meet people, take especially people that are successful, sit down with them, get their advice. Work hard, get some mentors, get their advice, and always be nice. People will do business with people that they like, not people that they don't like. So just be. I've met so many people in my life. I would say I'm friends with 98, 99% of them. You'll always find one or two that no matter how nice you are, they're not going to like you, whether it's jealousy or whatever it is. But don't let that bother you. Be nice, work hard, be nice, have mentors, and get advice. And you can make it only in America, land of opportunity. You can make it too.
And that's really wonderful advice for anyone. John Catsimatidis, you have been a very, very good guest. And it's been a real pleasure to interview you and to hear all about your life story, your successes, your politics, your philanthropy, and then to hear your advice to young people. This concludes Successful Philanthropy. Our guest, John Catsimatidis. I'm Jean Shafiroff, your host. I'll see you next week.